Hi, today's session is about taking you through the new data insight section of the GMAT focus edition. What we will do in this session is we will give you a brief insight about what is new in this section, how to score good in this section, and how to use the resources etc. in this section so that we can score the optimum. The first thing that you need to understand in this section is that it is not something which is new. Anybody who has seen or has researched about the GMAT Classic Edition will know that there used to be a section called Integrated Reasoning, which was not a part of the score of 800 that you could maximum score, but it used to be a graded section which always used to be there in some grade out of 8 in the scorecard. Now, what has happened is over the last 4 or 5 years, most of the business schools have actually asked a quantification of data analysis skills by students. That is because if you look at the 21st century decision making, data analysis and taking decision based on data analysis is one of the most important skills that a manager must have. So based on that, what they have done is they have taken the integrated reasoning part and has made a scoring section out of it as the third section. So therefore, as you already know, there are now three sections which contribute to the score of maximum possible 805 in GMAT focus edition, which is the quantitative reasoning section, the verbal reasoning section, and obviously now the new one, that is the data insights section. Apart from that, the quantitative reasoning section has been now made exclusively problem solving section, and the data sufficiency questions that used to be an integral part of the quantitative reasoning section has now been made a part of the data insight section. So therefore, practically there are now 5 types of questions in the data insight section. The first 4 types, that is table analysis, 2-part analysis, graphic interpretation, and multi-source reasoning, where basically the same questions as was part of the erstwhile integrated reasoning section of the GMAT Classic. The 5th type is obviously the data sufficiency questions that used to be a part of the quantitative reasoning section and now has been shifted to this part of the section. Let's first of all talk about what type of knowledge and skill are required to be good in this section. If you want to be good in this section, especially where there is an amount of data crunching and etc., it will be very good to know the basic definitions like average, median, mode, standard deviation, because this will be something which will be helping you to calculate and reach to a conclusion, especially in the questions where you need to either crunch some data or look at some graphs. It will also be good to know sets and counting methods, the basic understanding about chance and probability, sequencing and series. It is always good to know the importance of ratios, profit, loss, discount, what is percentage more, what is percentage less, how much percentage growth rates, and etc. One of the most important things which has been seen in around 20 to 30% of the questions is if you can relate the different types of variables that are involved in that question as the causal effect, make a mathematical expression out of it, and I'm not talking about very complex ones, right? And understand what will be the result if we change the values of those variables. And therefore, fundamentally, if I can talk about in mathematical language, making a function out of the different variables available in the question. Now, this goes for questions where we are talking about there are actually some data and some numbers and values involved. There will be a set of questions in the data insight section wherein we are talking about something like a situational analysis. Now, what type of skill sets are required for that? Apart from good reading and comprehension skills, you might actually need to have this skill to understand or think what type of assumptions or premises the author must have taken while reaching to a conclusion in the passage, the type of skill to infer beyond what is directly written, and then strategize a course of action based on the situational analysis that you have. Very critical analysis of what can strengthen or weaken the argument that has been placed in the passage, and the type of arguments, that is, what is a cause, what is an effect, is the analogy that has been created in the passage is a right analogy or not, right? What type of statistics has been used, and is it a relevant statistics to reach to that type of conclusion, is something which, if you have, that will be a great skill to have in this section. Let's look at the structure of the section. Now, theoretically speaking, there are 20 questions and 45 minutes. So therefore, if you theoretically again divide these 45 minutes with these 20 questions, it looks like, this is important, that you have got 2 minutes 15 seconds per question. Now, this is not exactly true. Okay, this looks like a luxury because 2 minutes 15 seconds per question in a GMAT paper looks very lucrative and very luxurious. But this is not exactly true, because about 50 to 60% of the questions will have multiple parts. How does it look like? We will show you in the subsequent slides. But therefore, only if you can do all the parts correctly, you get credit for that question. So those questions may actually require much more time than 2 minutes 15 seconds. Okay, so therefore, obviously those questions where there is only one part and they are standalone, the time limit now comes down below 2 minutes 15 seconds, because the multiple part question will actually require more time. Another important information is that the online or the on-screen calculator, as they call it, is available exclusively for this section only in GMAT. It has been removed from the quantitative reasoning section. So therefore, let's look at the calculator first. The calculator is exactly like the Microsoft calculator that you get bundled with your Windows, or the basic calculator that you get to see when you are using a Mac OS. All the basics functions are available. You have got plus, minus, addition, subtraction, division, multiplication. There is in fact a square root and a percentage also. Okay. Good enough for the type of calculations that you required in the data insight section. Does not require more than that. Obviously does not have direct mathematical functions like standard deviation or average or something like that you get in an Excel sheet. However, as I said, it is good enough for the type of calculations that will be available in the data insight section. Okay. Another important thing out here is these two buttons. There is an M plus, M minus, as you can see. Okay, they actually retain some of the calculations that you want to do, so that if you want to use it later, or if you want to use it for any other question or come back to it and etc., they can actually retain that memory, and memory minus will obviously clear out that memory for you. Now therefore, let's see how the questions look like. Okay, now this is a tabular analysis question. You can see here that the data has been arranged, giving the name of the restaurant, the cuisine type, the price per meal, neighborhood, wine included or not, and average number of meals sold. Now one very interesting thing about this part is that they allow you sorting. What it means is that you can see, for example, that here, if you closely look at the name of the restaurants, they have been arranged in an alphabetical order. Okay. Now therefore, what it means is that they have been arranged as per the name of the restaurant. Now if you want, you can choose your price per meal, and therefore this column will sort itself. So when you choose your price per meal, this column will sort itself from the highest to the lowest. Okay, or if you want to choose neighborhood, then what they will do is they will bundle all downtown restaurants together, all the central restaurants together, right? So that therefore, if you want any specific information about only the downtown restaurants or a specific one about the central restaurants, then you can very clearly use them using this sort function. Now let's look at therefore how the questions look like. As you can see that in these questions, for example, if you look at the first question, remember this is only one question and three parts, as we had discussed that there can be multiple parts. In this question, it says the average price per meal for all participating restaurants in the downtown neighborhood was approximately 30. Now downtown is spread all across. So if you want to bundle all the downtown restaurants, all you need to do is you go to sort, click neighborhood, and all the downtown will come together, and then you can find out the price per meal for all the downtown restaurants, find an average, and you should be able to calculate it quickly. Okay. Now, once you have done that, and let's say you found out an answer is yes, and you click yes, you also have to see the average price per meal for participating restaurants in uptown neighborhood. Okay, and that was less than the average price of the downtown neighborhood, which will mean that now you'll have to calculate uptown as well, compare it with the downtown average, and then click on a yes or a no. Okay, so typically these questions will require approximately 1 minute, 45 seconds to 1 minute per part, and therefore typically this question will take approximately 2 minutes, 45 seconds to 3 minutes to be able to completely solve it, including all the parts, whether there are 3 parts or 4 parts or 2 parts or something like that. This is how a typical data sufficiency question looks like. There will be a question followed by 2 data or statements, and you will have to decide that there will be instructions given. You will have to decide whether statement 1 is sufficient to answer the question, 2 is not, or 2 is sufficient to answer the question, 1 is not, or we can combine the 2 information and then only you can get an answer, and so on. Typically, because this question require knowledge of calculations and making an equations or something like that, again my guess is after reading the question you will require approximately 1.5 minutes to solve this question. So my guess is these questions can be solved in less than 2 minutes when you are trying these questions. And therefore let's look at the basic strategies overall for this section. For the questions with multiple parts, you will require 3.5 minutes on an average, and that is my guess. I mean, it might be more if the number of parts is more, and therefore you cannot plan more than 1.5 minutes for the standalone questions. As I said that for multiple parts there will be at least 3 to 4 questions with multiple parts, maybe actually more. So we have seen that depending on the adaptability of the paper, there can be actually 9 to 10 questions, which is almost as high as 50% of the paper, which will have multiple parts. So therefore you'll have to plan it in a manner that if those questions require 3 to 3.5 minutes, the standalone questions with only one part must be solved in less than 1.5 minutes. Remember that completion of the paper is very, very important. GMAT and MBA.com has been very, very clear that penalty for not being able to complete the paper is very high, and therefore we need to complete the paper. Effectively speaking, attempting all the questions in the paper is mandatory. So therefore time management is very, very important, which will mean that you, let's say in a multiple part question, if you are stuck with just one of the parts, you might have to actually dump it after 2.5 minutes and move on, because there is an option now in GMAT Focus to come back and review the question and change at least 3 questions, or not at least, at most 3 questions in that section. So therefore we might have to take that approach that we are stuck in that question, so just mark something, mark that part, hope it is okay. But if you have any doubt after you have finished off all the 20 questions, you might want to come back to that specific question, try out that third part and see whether you want to change the answer or not. Okay, but keep it in mind that it is very important that you attempt all the 20 questions in those 45 minutes. If you are not able to attempt all the 20 questions and the 45 minutes gets over before that, then the penalty is heavier than the questions going wrong. Okay, so time management is very clearly a more important priority than getting the questions wrong. So 1-2 questions will go wrong. GMAT understands that, and GMAT has made it clear that that is part of the story. What we are going to do in the subsequent videos is we are going to take up each one of those 5 type of questions that we discussed and discuss what type of knowledge and skill that you require to get a good score or do them correctly in this section. Thank you very much for watching.